EntrepreNINES, everybody. I'm John Wist.
And I'm Bonni Mace. We are two Enneagram 9s who took the leap into the world of entrepreneurship at a similar time. And this podcast is a space where we're inviting you to laugh and learn with us as we work to build businesses with soul. Episode 12.
Episode 12. And we are about to have an interview with a Type 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is our Type 7 deep dive.
Deep dive.
Which is an overview.
Yeah.
That is probably deep for most people.
Yeah. It doesn't feel as deep to me.
Right.
Because I know there's a lot more to learn.
We are in a lot of ways scratching the surface, but I feel like you're getting a very broad scratching of the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a broad scratch rather than a deep dive.
That sounds like you need medical treatment.
It's probably not going to get picked up by
Dr. E's a broad scratch.
Yeah. It's probably not going to be the next big thing. Broad scratches. So
anyway.
Yeah. So Type 7's.
Yeah. These guys are so fun. Guys and girls.
So much fun.
They are known as, the new name for them is much better. And they are known as the Enthusiastic Optimist.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Lots of energy.
So, yeah, great energy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. High energy people we love to be around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. We were saying their old name is the Entertaining Optimist, and that makes them sound like
they're going to get up and just do a little jig everywhere they go or something.
You guys should have been able to see John's jig.
It was great.
It reminded me of the Looney Tunes frog.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going for?
I think that's what I was after.
That's what you were going for. What was his? I don't know what his name is, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
With the stripy pants.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Enthusiastic Optimists. It makes more sense because they are not stereotypical, here to entertain. I mean, that's not
right.
It's terrible. But let's talk about how they show up into the world sometimes.
Sounds good.
Type 7s do show up as enthusiastic. That's one way that they are. They can often show up quite playful and excitable, ready to take on the world with a smile. They're also very versatile because they have a lot of a broad scope of interest.
Okay.
But that can also make them seem quite scattered because their broad span of interests means that they sometimes don't quite finish learning about that interest.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about broad scratch. That's what I thought. Every time you say broad. But go ahead.
Oh, no.
Okay,
anyway.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So they can feel scattered because they might have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. But then if you start asking them to go deeper, they'll be like, oh, I didn't get to lesson 5, necessarily.
Gotcha.
That's in an average way.
Okay.
They can also be very social, right? They're mostly very outgoing and enjoy being around different kinds of people and different kinds of experiences and things that are intense and fun. And they love the idea that life has so much to give to them.
Okay.
Right? They love that life is full of possibilities.
Okay.
On the flip side, they don't like the less palatable opportunities that life has to give. So they can also seem in an unhealthy state. They can be a little bit escapist because they are an optimist. They want to see the bright side of life. They're great friends for when you fall down there and be like, oh, let's just stand up and try that again. No big deal. Brush it off. That wasn't a failure. But it's also kind of like when you fall for the 5th time, it's like something is wrong here. No, just brush that off. Try it again. That part is harder.
Yeah.
The hard stuff is not necessarily something that a 7 and their average unhealthy state wants to spend a lot of time with.
Okay.
So that is something that I think is very intriguing about our next guest. She deals with some very difficult, seedy underbelly of reality.
Yeah.
And so I'm so excited to dig into that with her.
Yeah.
And how she copes with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of how 7s show up in the world. They embrace life with big open arms and love it.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. We know a few 7s.
Yeah.
And I would say that is pretty accurate in describing their general outward appearance.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So here's a great summary. One of my sisters is a Type 7, and she says, I know I'm a party to be around.
Nice.
And
Nice.
she says it with full confidence.
That's
she's
hilarious.
like, I know I'm a fun time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's a great summary of a 7 is they know that they're a fun time.
That's awesome.
No apologies.
Okay. That's
needed.
good. That's good. And I would say that about our next guest too, is that she is a fantastic person to be around.
Yeah.
So,
I've actually never met her in real life.
just crazy.
Yeah.
She's fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Okay. So, so that's just some ways that type 7 shows up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go to core motivations. So real quick, just recap, like, what are our core motivations?
Yeah. Our core motivations are the thing that drive everything that we do and how we perceive.
Yeah.
And contribute to the world.
Yep.
So we all have a core fear, a core desire, a core weakness, and a core longing. And if you dig deep enough beneath everything you do, beneath everything you interpret, beneath everything you say, one of these motivations is driving you. It's your awareness of it. That is the difference.
Got it. Yep.
So if you can be aware of it and realize, I want to say this thing because I'm afraid, then you can change your behavior.
Yes.
However, other way around doesn't always work.
Right. Got it.
So type 7's core motivations. Let's start with their fear. They fear being deprived or trapped in emotional pain, being like limited or bored or missing out on fun things. So like FOMO, that phrase is 100% coined by a 7.
Gotcha.
I have a theory because fear of missing. Yeah. They innately know what that is, and and that's the worst.
Yes,
FOMO's the worst for a 7. They don't like it. So that's a fear that motivates them. Their core desire, they want to feel happy, they want to be happy and fully satisfied and content. Mm-hmm. And 7s have a harder time feeling that way. Contentment is a struggle for a 7.
Okay, because
they're also innately aware of how much life has to offer.
So like there's the kind of paradox between wanting or desiring the contentment, but at the same time seeing so much opportunity in life that it's hard to be content because you're missing something.
Yes.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So I'll get to this in a little bit. The 7s are innately like very wise. Okay. So they have this innate knowing of how deep they are and how deeply unsatisfied they can be and how deep of a hole are in us as humans that, theologically you can talk about how to fill that, but I won't go there. So there are 2 ways to cope with that. You can which we'll just move right to their weakness, which is gluttony. So you can overfill, or you can face that hard thing head on. And but
interesting
for a 7, their core weakness is gluttony. So the average to unhealthy, like the automatic reflex of the awareness that you have this deep hole that can never be satisfied for a 7 is going to be gluttony, which is not your typical, eating nonstop. We hear gluttony and we automatically think like candy bar wrappers everywhere.
Right.
That's not what I mean. I just mean looking for constant experience.
Packing it all in as much as you can.
Yes. Yeah. Like if I'm awake, I'm doing something, I'm experiencing something, I have something to do next.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of gluttony. So it could be, experiences. It could be food.
Yeah.
That could be part of it, but it's not a typical, it's not an eating disorder. I'll put it that way.
Right.
And then their core longing, what's underneath all of this is they just want to hear that they will be taken care of. So all of this goes back to who is taking care of me? Am I taken care of? Am I going to be satisfied and safe? Because they're in the head triad where security matters.
Okay.
So they feel more secure when they experience that happiness and contentment.
Gotcha.
Which they get from intense experiences.
Okay.
And fun experiences and not being bored.
Yeah.
Not missing out.
So I guess you could say to a certain extent, having a fullness of experience or of life or of a schedule is the safety. Like there being room or space is maybe scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you think about it, we really don't deal with the hard things in life until we slow down, right? So you can, like I said, you can cope with the hard things of life, two ways you can ignore them.
Yeah.
Blast right through them, or you can sit still and face them.
Yeah.
And 7s, as soon as they sit still, they can't help but face it because they know, they have that knowing. They're wise.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they try to keep moving all the time.
Okay.
Or it can be a reason why. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So after what we've done in the past few of these that we've done is after we've talked about like the core motivations, we feel like there's this question of like, how do we love a 7 well, or how do we love any number well? And I think that it's a really good question for right after this, because you've kind of gotten a quick snapshot of like,
their most vulnerable sign.
Yeah. So how do we love a 7 well?
Yeah. So recognize that, I think a lot of times 7s, or people can interpret 7s as self-centered, or, like they don't pay attention well to other people's things or what's going on, or like they don't offer a lot of support or whatever, because they're going to try to reframe things to the optimistic point of view. They're going to say like, what would make me feel better is if we quickly move on and go over here. To the next thing. Yeah. And like experience this next great thing. And so people can interpret that sometimes as like, you don't care about what I'm going through.
Yeah.
When they actually really do.
Yeah.
And so loving a 7 well might be one, like when they're struggling, give them space, like give them time, do some of the fun things with them. So that way, like the hard things of life don't like slam them too quickly.
Yeah.
So go do some of the fun things with them and give them time to get to the harder side of what they're experiencing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because all of it coming at once, like then you're not getting to do what you want to do. So let me put it in like, if there's a sudden death in your family, I'll just go to like the darkest point, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Sudden death in your family. A 7 isn't probably going to automatically want to like sit still and cry with the family. Yeah. They're going to automatically think, well, I had a cookout I was supposed to go to this weekend. I was supposed to get my nails done. I also had planned to like, have this thing at work and blah, blah, blah. They're going to think about all those things that suddenly they're going to miss out on. It's not because they're like innately selfish humans. It's because all of a sudden they're faced with their greatest fear, death, and that they're missing out on some of the beautiful things because we all die.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And that's a hard thing to face. Yeah. So giving them the space to get there eventually is a way to love them well.
Okay.
And then on the more optimistic side, a way to love a 7 well is just like go with the flow. Be with them. Say, I hear you have a wild day plan. Like, let me come with you. And then when you're in the wild day and they start talking about the next thing, bring them back to the present and say, hey, like, I know, the way I like to put this is with roller coasters. Like if you go to a theme park, they're so excited about the roller coaster and then they get in line for the roller coaster and then they're on the roller coaster and they start talking about the next one.
Yeah.
And so to remind them, like, let's experience.
Be here with me now.
Yeah. The adrenaline of this roller coaster.
Yeah.
And we can talk about the next one when we, inevitably wait an hour in line there.
Right.
So loving them well is bringing them back to the present. Make sure that their desire of experiencing life to the full and experiencing contentment that they're there, because their tendency is going to be to try to jump ahead to the future next thing.
Yeah.
Because they're worrying about what they might miss out on next.
Yeah.
So that might be some ways to love a 7 well.
That's good. That. Okay. So you mentioned it just briefly as you were talking about core motivations, and that's the decision-making triad that 7 is in, which is the head, correct? Okay. Yeah.
So they're buddies with a 5 and a 6, and they're in the head triad. So this means that they make their decisions in their brains, which, I mean, that's how we all make our decisions biologically. Like, I get it.
Right.
But these are the pro-con list scheduling people. Right. So they're going to have lots of rational reasons as to why they're making the choices that they're making.
Yeah.
Unlike, we've only talked about gut triad people so far who often can't explain what it is.
Yep.
And head triad people often don't care about like the emotional reality behind a decision.
Okay.
Like they want more of the logical stuff.
Yeah. Like what makes sense, quote unquote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More practical and
Yes. for sure.
Yeah.
More practical, and they're motivated like by we all have a shared emotion, and we all have a shared motivator, which I'm looking for my page because I blanked on that one phrase. But so they're shared, here it is. What's it called? Emotional struggle. And then they have a shared common desire, the gut triad people or the head triad people.
Okay.
And so their emotional struggle that they share in this group is anxiety. Okay. And then the common desire that they have is for security.
Yeah.
So you kind of see how these go hand in hand. Like they want to feel safe and secure. That shows up in different ways for different numbers. So for a 7, it's all about what they're experiencing, the contentment that they have. For a 6, it's actual like physical safety.
Yeah. Yep.
Like not dying. 7s just don't want to think about dying. They want to live life to the fullest and put that part in the back of their head. Yeah. And 6s are like, how do we not die at all times? And 5s are like, I might run out of things that keep me alive.
Oh, okay.
And so they kind of move to like this more hoarding tendency to find their security.
Okay. That's funny.
Yeah. 5s think they're always going to run out of things, and 7s think that nothing is ever going to run out for them. So that's kind of the interesting like juxtaposition of the two. Okay. Because they're also related. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Yeah. So yeah, that's how they show up. And again, that security. So for a 7, the security is all about like, what's next for me? What's next for me? They're very future thinking as far as how can I continue to be happy? Yeah. And that's the way they feel secure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
good.
That's their decision-making triad.
Gotcha. So let's talk about how they do kind of interface and interact with their neighbor numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is a 6 and an 8. Mm-hmm. So those are the wings.
Mm-hmm. Yes. 7 wings, 6 and 8. Yeah. So again, 6s are more, they're like the secure, they're the anxious thinkers. Yeah. So a 7 with a 6 wing is going to show up a little bit more like subdued. Okay. And playful, and they are going to care more about what other people think about them. Okay. Than a 7 with an 8 wing.
Makes sense.
Yes. So we'll get to what the 8 is in just a minute.
Yeah.
And they value more people doing the things they want to do with them.
Okay.
Because a 6 is the loyalist too. So a 6 really values their community. They find a lot of security in the people around them. Yep. And so a 7 pulls on that a lot, and they like to do things with people and have their people with them. Okay. And then when they're struggling, they can get a little less focused and more scattered because the anxiety amps up, because a 6 is like, they constantly have this inner dialogue going on called the inner committee that tells them all the scenarios all the time. Yep. So a 7 has that sort of that they pull on a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so when they're struggling, that like cacophony gets louder in their head. Yeah. And so they get a little bit more scattered, because then they try to like run from one thing to the other to take care of things and get back to like their happy state of mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're awesome. 7 wing 6, because they're great friends, and they're less likely to sort of abandon you when they feel the draw. When FOMO happens, like a 7 might abandon you. Yeah. A 7 with a 6 wing is going to be less likely to do that because they value their community.
Gotcha.
A little bit more. And this also makes them like really great friends, because these are the people that you want like planning your bachelorette party.
Planning your trips. Planning
your trips. Yeah. And like, because they're going to bring you along, and they're not going to have a problem like footing the bill for some of this stuff, because what matters to them is the experience and like living life with you.
Yeah.
And they're super passionate about life and about people being connected and about everybody experiencing things together. Yeah. So that's really great. Okay. A 7 wing 8. So an 8 is the challenger, leader, very sure of themselves number. Yeah. Right. So this is why I said that 6s caring more about what people think, because an 8 wing does not.
Does not. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
8s are very sure of who they are, and they don't care how people think about them, not in a way that is like bad. Like I say that and it sounds like they're just
it's more
smack people around. That's not true.
It's more just confidence.
Yeah.
It's just confidence.
Yeah. It's hard to rock an 8 internally.
Yeah.
So a 7 brings that on, and that means that they show up in the world like much more assertive and confident, and they're going to be quicker to go after the things that they want to experience.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are more likely to, like, if you get worried, I'm sorry, 7s, that I keep going back to like a theme park narrative. But if you like have a hesitation about a roller coaster, you're gonna be like, well, I'm going.
Yeah.
And they'll just like leave you there. Whereas a 7 wing 6 might try to convince you a little bit longer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they're quick and intense and persistent. Like, these are the people that they get knocked down, and like Captain America, I can do this all day.
Right.
Like, they just keep going for it. When they're struggling though, they can be a bit more demanding of other people, because when their fear amps up, they're gonna of missing out on something, they're gonna push people around to get what they need.
Gotcha.
Because they're worried about and they're gonna be more aggressive about making sure that they're taken care of, because that's what they desire.
Yeah.
And so it's harder to stand in the way of a 7 wing 8. And then the thing that's great about a 7 wing 8 is that they are really innovative and confident. Okay. So they're like great inventors, right? Because they're gonna stumble over an issue, and they're gonna reframe it into something positive, and then they're gonna go after it again. Yeah. They're not gonna be knocked down. And they often don't have the word failure like in their vocabulary at all. They'll just be like,
interesting.
It didn't work, but that doesn't mean we're dumb. That doesn't mean we fail. That doesn't mean anything. Let's try it again this way. Right. Like, maybe this was fine. Let's not change anything and try it again. They're very, very tenacious. And so they're a good person to have in your corner if you're doing things that are risky or high failure, or, you need an extra motivation boost, because they are not easily deterred.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I feel like this is good because we've already talked about 8s some because of wings for 1s and 9s. And so we haven't traveled over into the head triad quite as much, but just to kind of see kind of like the anxiety and the safety security parts starting to kind of come into play. And I also feel like, just as we're talking about it, it's good to hear, like, for me, I don't know, it's helping me hear more how just all of the Enneagram is very interconnected.
Yeah.
And
so much.
There's so many pieces of all of these things that we talk about that I just like, it's just a quick reminder, like, all of these types show up in all of us in some form or fashion. And like, even just learning a little bit about a type can help you kind of see where that type kind of appears in you.
Yeah.
And so it's just good to be reminded of that. So
yeah, for sure. I was mulling over this idea the other day, and I put it in my Instagram stories, and it didn't get any traction, but I'll still write about it one day.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about how self-awareness, we think, often leads to like more, like, we think self-awareness is going to make us more independent and self-sufficient is really the word that I should think. We think, I'm going to get self-aware. I'm going to trim up on my, weak spots or whatever. And I'm going to be more self-sufficient. I'll need people less. When in reality, being more self-aware means that you actually become more surrendered, because you realize how much we are connected to each other, and how much you do have those things, but you also don't have those things, because some of the numbers we go to are, the way that we access them is not healthy.
Right.
Right. So there are going to be times that we actually really need other people around us to bring out more of the healthy side of who we could be, or to just help us through a really hard space. And so self-awareness actually leads you towards more surrender to the fact that, gosh, on this crazy spinning blue ball we are on, like, I am very connected to every person. Yeah. And it is wildly inappropriate for me to disregard that.
Yeah. And I probably have more in common with that person than I want to give them or myself credit for.
Yeah. 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 It's very easy to other people, which actually, this is probably some of what we'll talk about
Yeah.
with Nikki.
100%.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. We're all very connected, and
Yeah.
self-awareness only hopefully heightens that.
Yeah.
If your self-awareness is doing something else, probably not self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's probably
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sorry.
an
little
ego trip.
little tangent there, but
No,
just,
I like it.
yeah. Okay. So last thing that we'll talk about for our little overview here is the paths, the stress and the growth paths for a 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So paths are, again, every Enneagram type should be aware of 5 numbers. And so your wings are 2 of those numbers. If you're a 7, your wings are 2 of those numbers. And then your path numbers are the other 2 numbers. So 7 should be aware of your 6 and your 8. And then now your paths, which are 1 and a 5.
Mm-hmm.
So this is fun because we talked about ones in our last deep dive.
Yep.
So we'll start with stress this time.
Okay.
I think I previously started with growth, but I'll start with stress here since we have a kind of a baseline understanding of a 1.
Yep.
So a 7 in stress is going to borrow average to unhealthy behaviors from a type 1, which we learned about last time, are becoming slave to perfection. So this is, again, like what's interesting about the 7-1 connection is it's surprising.
Yeah. It's not where when you hear like the enthusiastic optimists or whatever, that's not where you think they would go. Like,
oh, they're going to go borrow from the principled reformer real quick.
Right.
But they do.
Right. Yeah.
They do. And then vice versa again with the 1s to the 7s.
Yeah.
But yeah, and their stress, 7s start to get really trapped. Like they have this innate wisdom that things are not right.
Yeah.
Right. So they know this. So in stress, they go there hard. Everything's wrong. You're wrong. That's wrong. That over there is wrong. I'm wrong. Everything's wrong. You guys all suck. This needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my first experiences with somebody who was like blatantly a 7, like when they went to the stress place, I was like, who is this human? Like what? All of a sudden, like now you're deep cleaning this space that you didn't care about. Like it didn't bother you before that it was a mess. And now you literally like, they have the grout toothbrush thing. Like there's dust here.
Right.
And that's a really, anyway, I've dumbed that down.
Yeah.
Audience.
Sure.
But that's where they go in their heads is, you know what? Like life is not good. Life is not full of good things to experience. Life is broken.
Yeah.
And I now need to fix it.
Right.
If I'm ever going to be happy again.
Yeah. Got to be the fixer. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And all of those things start like standing out to them. So they get really micromanagey. Like 7s will go from like go with the flow kind of people because they just want to be along for the experience.
Right.
To like, let me do this for you.
Or like this is the thing we're going to do because if you don't do this thing, I'm going to miss out. You're going to miss out and you can't miss out. Yeah. And neither can I.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good way to say that.
Okay.
And and they get that little inner critic going because again, they have this knower, they know. And so it starts with them and then it starts to bleed out into their environment. And so that's kind of them. That's them in stress.
Yeah.
Intense.
Okay.
And again, remember, I made 1 sound kind of awful, but if you need to remember that 1s are amazing humans, go back a couple episodes.
But we're also talking about kind of the more negative aspects of a 1 because that's the stress. The stress. That's where we're going in stress. Yeah.
And stress, you don't suddenly borrow healthy behaviors.
Right.
That takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And if you do, well done. You've been working very hard for a long time.
If that happens automatically from you, you're now invited to take over this podcast.
Yes. Come join us.
Because wow.
Oh gosh.
Anyway.
Okay. Growth path.
Let's talk about growing 7s. Yeah. They're great. So growing 7s move to a type 5. And the type 5s are like the wise intellectual people. Yeah. So they are what I affectionately call, because I am married to a type 5, a super nerd.
Yes.
They love knowing things deeply. They love. John.
Did you hear that?
Reverberated the boom.
Sorry.
It's a cup. Anyway, they love knowing things deeply. They love having lots of wisdom, and they love being alone, and being still. Yeah. And not putting out into the world, I guess, if that makes sense, because they like to kind of reserve energy. They like to reserve their resources. Yeah. So this is quite a switch for a type 7 who's like, I will pay whatever it takes to experience this, right? To then suddenly move towards a type 5. But what this does when you move to type 5, like I said, the 5 is the wise person who wants to access their wisdom, and they want more wisdom all the time. So when a 7 is growing, they suddenly allow themselves to slow down enough and then be brave enough to face their wisdom. And then they become really profound individuals.
Nice.
Like they're full of insight that you would have never come to yourself. They see things in a different way, but in a very true way.
Yeah.
So, you know, a stressed out 7 is not going to see things in a true way. They're going to see things in a twisted way. An average 7 is going to try to reframe things to the positive. A really healthy 7 is going to see it all.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be the sorry about Henry now and again. They're going to be able to experience the fullness of life.
Yeah.
All the sides.
Yeah.
And then bring some kind of like deeply focused reflection to the world from it.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And their brain can go from more of like, what's next to what's now? Like, what do I have?
Yeah.
What's for now? What's for later?
Yeah.
Like they can begin to balance all of that.
That's cool.
Better.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think it will be, I'm excited for our conversation with Nikki. So our next episode, we'll be having Nikki Lerner on, who is a coach, and she owns her own business and has been a worship leader before and things like that. So I think it's going to be really, really insightful. But we've been leaving each one of these episodes with just kind of like encouragement / it might be hard, but go for it. Type 7, or go for it type 1, kind of a statement or kind of a suggestion. So what's a good direction to kind of like challenge our type 7s, but send them off in a hopefully positive direction?
When 7s can begin to experience real hope and verbalize real hope. So 7s can very quickly verbalize false hope. You know, like it's easy for a 7 to offer false hope and to offer like glass half full or like silver lining or whatever. But the thing with that stuff is it's actually still quite an empty glass, right? Yeah. And so you can reframe it all you want, but if you ignore the other half of the reality, then it's not real hope.
Gotcha.
So a 7 being able to like sit and then verbalize empathy, like real empathy for themselves and what they're experiencing, and for the people around them, and for community, and for the world, for them to be able to verbalize that and then say, even so, like, even so, here's the hope I see in the world. Yeah. And so this is something I'm excited to hear Nikki talk about more too, that's her work. Yeah. We won't get too much into, like she deals with inclusion and diversity and inclusion, which is hard work. And she does not offer false hope in her content. She does a very good job of looking at the hard stuff and bringing real hope anyway. Yeah. Because there is definitely a balance of, there can be hope when we hold the hard stuff and the good stuff. Yeah. And when we hold just one of those things, that's not real.
Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah. If you know a type 7, or if you are a type 7 who is doing this, who's doing the work to really understand how you're feeling, how the world is feeling, what hard things are going on in the world, and then tapping into your optimistic gift, because it is a gift. I think we often like our culture is very cynical as a default. Yeah. And so we can often like laugh off people who have hope and optimism. Yeah. But that is a gift and a strength. So when you can learn to use that holistically, is something to very much celebrate. That's awesome. In a type 7.
That's good. That's awesome. Well, I think that's a great way to send us off for a couple weeks here to think about our type 7 friends, and definitely come back for our next episode with Nikki. I think it's going to be fantastic. She's a fantastic person.
So excited.
I have missed kind of getting to soak in her wisdom. So I think it's going to be a lot of wisdom. So I'm excited for it.
Right.
Yeah. But in the meantime, hey, why not send us a voicemail?
Yeah. What are we going to tell them to tell us this time, John?
Let's just, I would say, let's tell us what you've learned about one of the numbers that we've kind of done a deep dive on since we've started the podcast. So
I like that.
What's just something that you've learned, maybe something unexpected or something that you didn't realize, whether it's about yourself or someone else, from
John,
one of the numbers. Yeah.
Will you make a visualization of that and we'll put them on Instagram?
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
Yeah.
That's what we'll do with them when you send this message this time.
Yeah, you can hear yourself on all sorts of places. And I'll make a little thing that shows like the waveform going up and down.
John taught me what visualization is.
They're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see them all over the place. As soon as people are like, this is what it is. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
you mean that super trendy thing where everybody puts this in there?
Yeah.
In their stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Way to
I
go.
mean, people call them all sorts of things, but yeah, that's what I've been calling them just because I feel like it's
probably the official.
it might be an official thing.
Thing.
Audiogram is also something people call them, but there is a specific, like, I think company called Audiogram too.
Oh, it's like Kleenex.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Kind of.
Or
Yeah.
Band-Aids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
These are all not the names of the items, but we now call them this.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but yeah, they're fun. Yes. And we will make those. That sounds fun. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for dropping more Enneagram knowledge on us.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's always fun when I can, like I said, there's lots of room for me to nerd out. This podcast, we got to give John the space too.
Hey, I'm okay with it. I'm good with my every once in a while nerd out. So.
Hey, we're on the internet.
All over the internet.
All over it. You can find us on the socials at EntrepreNINES.
Yep.
With an S. And then John and I's individual companies.
Yep.
We are on the show notes.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to say every time.
It is a lot to say.
Figure out what make
We've
you
given
guys
ourselves
listen.
mouths full for brand names. So
To be fair, it's hard to get around Enneagram. When you're
Enneagram is already a very
Yeah.
big mouthful.
Oh man. Okay. I mean, random sidebar.
Okay.
I introduced myself to a neighbor a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm an Enneagram coach." She's like, "An animal lover?" And I was like, "I'm gonna go home."
Okay, yeah. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
So there you go.
All right. Well, friends, thanks for joining us this week. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review so
Yeah.
other people can check us out too. So, yeah. And in the meantime, we will see you next time. Bye.